here. Why are you like that? Right? Today, this is the last lesson of the semester. Feel better?
Yeah.
Mr. Technicality.
Yes.
Today is the last lesson of the semester. We're going to talk about biomes, okay? And we're going to have some few things to copy here, I think. So, yeah, we're going to talk about climate, weather. Don't worry about that right now. But a biome is a large geographical region with a particular range of temperature and precipitation levels. And the plants and animals that are adapted to those conditions, biomes are considered to be an open system because they can exchange both matter and energy with their surroundings. Okay? So let's just copy that. The next line here states this, and before I show you the next slide here, I'm going to ask you. Virtually all the energy for a biome originates from where? The sun. Okay, is the answer. So yes, all the energy comes from the sun. Okay, so just put that in there. Energy can leave the biome by being radiated out into space or being transferred to other biomes. Okay, but virtually all the energy for a biome originates from the sun. Okay, now we're going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different biomes here. Okay. And you're going to kind of have to figure out where you want to put this. Now, the tundra one is already done for you for a little example, okay? So the latitude, in this case, is very high. So it's near the equator, or sorry, near the poles, okay? There's very little sunlight during wintertime, a lot of summer, and a lot during summer, I should say. The average temperature it's actually -15. The minus is kind of not in the right spot there, just so you know. So if you want to fix that a little bit, it's -15 to 5. The minus was on the previous line there, just so you know. So maybe just fix that for yourselves. Average temperature -15 to 5. Precipitation is very little, okay? And there's few plants and few animals, and small low-lying plants, okay? So basically, that's what the tundra is going to look like. I think this is already in Google Classroom, but I will put the pictures in there as well, which I think the pictures are helpful for you as well. So when you get a test or you're looking at a diagram or something like that, you can kind of match them up a little bit as well. Okay, so I would suggest having that available for you as well. Tundra kind of looks like that, okay, in the wintertime, and in the summertime kind of looks a little something like that. Okay, so that's the tundra. Okay. We're going to basically start at the North Pole here and kind of work our way down, okay, closer to the equator basically, okay. The next one's called the taiga, and I'll let you guys copy that there, whatever you need to there. I'll pause it here in a second. Okay, this has also got a fairly high latitude. It's just south of the tundra. Okay, cool summers, cold winters. We get obviously more insolation, which means more basically solar energy than the tundra does, of course. The average temperature is 4 to 14 degrees Celsius. Quite a lot of precipitation, 40 to 100 centimeters per year. Okay, cone-bearing trees, things like that. And the diagram or the picture that you kind of should have in your mind for this would be something like that there, which we've probably seen before. You could even say, for example, this might be like the Banff area, right? Kind of reminds you of that, Lake Louise kind of thing, that kind of area there, okay? Now what you're going to find is that there's no like specific cutoff. There's going to be regions of this biome here and then maybe this biome here. So around us, there's quite a few biomes actually that you could kind of classify around us basically. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you might say, well, that's kind of roughly where we live, and it's maybe close, but again, this would probably be more like roughly, I would say more like Edmonton area, maybe a little bit of north of there, a little bit of west of there, kind of as well, kind of thing. Okay. All right. So moving on. Next one is the Deciduous Forest. Okay. And this is found mainly between 30 and 60 degrees latitude. So this would be kind of fall into our category here, I would say. Okay. Variation in the amount of insolation results in distinct winter and summer seasons. That's us. We have an average temperature of 14 to 27, yes. Precipitation, we actually get more than the taiga does. Okay. Deciduous trees, so that's kind of us, and we got deer, black bear, squirrels, rabbits, etc. Okay. So next one here, after that would be the, there's the Deciduous, sorry, there's a picture of the Deciduous Forest. So, and, you know, when I think, look at these pictures here, I think down kind of by the riverbank for us, you know, kind of thing. So I'd say that's kind of somewhat typical of kind of where we live, I guess. Okay. Okay. Grassland. So this can be found halfway between the poles and the equator, roughly. Average annual temperature of 4 to 30 degrees Celsius. Precipitation is at least 20 centimeters per year, but too low to support growth of trees. Grassy region with few or no trees. Animals include snakes, hawks, deer, coyotes, etc. Okay. I would say this kind of, when I see the grassland, and when you see a picture of the grassland, I would think things like perhaps, well, like kind of over in the savanna desert kind of thing, like not the desert, but north of there with little low trees, things like that. I think of things like even around like Medicine Hat area kind of thing, where it's kind of, you know, there's not many trees, the grass is, you know, not overly long kind of thing. Okay. And we'll show you some pictures of that right away here. But Lethbridge area, maybe even perhaps. Okay. Not many trees, grassy region. Next one. Oh, picture, sorry. Picture. Here we go. Grasslands. Okay. Something like that there, of course. And again, I think of things like, you know, Drumheller maybe kind of area, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, something like that there. Okay. It also could be obviously over in Europe as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. But rainforest. Okay, found near the equator. We have warm temperatures all year round, average annual temperature of 25 to 30. Lots of precipitation, more than 200 centimeters per year. We talked about, we actually had a little video clip on why that happens, okay? Because when the hot air and the cold air come together, creates large precipitation bands, okay? And evergreen and deciduous trees, vines, and shrubs, parrots, snakes, frogs, armadillos, jaguars, and gorillas. What does the rainforest look like here? It looks a little something like this. I'm sure we've seen pictures before, but very green, of course, right? Lots of precipitation, lots of sunlight. So we'd expect to have lots of green area there as well. Okay, good. Last one here, and then we're halfway done this lesson here. Desert. Located mostly near the equator, of course. High level of insolation, so they are very hot during the day. Cold at night because there's not enough material that has a high heat capacity. So we don't have any water there to kind of maintain that temperature. So it cools down. We basically are talking about air here. So it'd be kind of similar to a little bit like Saskatchewan in a way kind of thing, or around here, where it can be very hot during the day and then very cold at night. Okay. The average annual temperature is 12 to 27. Less than 25 centimeters of rainfall per year. It's the driest of the biomes. And cacti and drought-tolerant plants. And, of course, lizards, snakes, camels, and goats. All right. Again, some characteristics of the desert here. And it looks a little something like that there. Okay. Again, cactuses, very drought kind of conditions, okay, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now on the back side here, Canada's biomes. The 4 biomes would include the tundra, the taiga, the grassland, and the deciduous forest regions. Okay. And again, you could live, they're overlapping, okay? So you could live in a place where you could have literally a couple of these around you, okay? Okay, good. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about, there's actually some of the, I know it's not a really clear map there, but there's kind of roughly what they consider to be which biome kind of thing, okay? And again, you can be very close to maybe a couple of them, okay? In Calgary here, you notice that's just basically probably some, well, maybe a little bit of deciduous forest. Well, they actually probably call it more grassland here, I guess. But just to the west of us, of course, we get some taiga there, tundra's way up there kind of thing. Deciduous forest would be in this region right here kind of thing. But again, you can kind of relate to some of those pictures that are around us. Okay. Now, the second part of this lesson is really also important as well. Okay. And they are called climatographs. And a climatograph is a summary of the average temperature and precipitation for each month of the year for a given location. And I'll let you copy that there, whatever you need to. Graphs. So it is, again, the average temperature and precipitation for each month, okay, for a given location. So what we have to kind of, and there's a couple of examples on your sheet here, okay, so if you look at those, precipitation will always be here, and temperature is always going to be here, and then the months are going to be across the bottom. So January, February, March, April, May, all the way up to December, okay? Now, it's always arranged like this, so your precipitation is always going to be on the left-hand side, temperature is going to be always on the right-hand side. You can always think of it this way, it's alphabetical, okay? So P comes before T, so precipitation, temperature, okay? Now, the important thing with this graph is understanding, you'll notice on this graph, on these 2 examples here, we have a line, like a line graph that's called, and we have a bar graph, okay? And we have to make sure that we know which one goes with what, okay? So the values for the average precipitation are always plotted as a bar graph, and the values for the average temperature is plotted as a line graph, okay? And this is your example in your notes here. So make sure you copy that in there. Okay. Now, here's the important part of this. Okay, these don't have to be that difficult, but okay, look. If you think, for example, let's just talk about this right here. You can notice these values down here. Okay. If you kind of looked at the average of those values, average. I'd say probably about here somewhere, yes? So if I put a line kind of through the middle, be about there, yes? Now, here's the issue. If you think that represents precipitation, how much precipitation is that? Not a lot, right? If you think that represents temperature, what do you think that's going to be? It's going to be pretty cold, isn't it? Okay? So you might say, okay, well, I kind of get that's probably going to be precipitation, but whatever, okay? But if we look at the average temperature, look, the average temperature, there's your highest, there's your lowest. I'd say it's probably going to be about here, okay? Again, if you think that that's the precipitation, look how much precipitation that is. That's quite a lot, yes? Okay? If you think it's temperature, it's not a lot, okay? So you have to know, is the bar graph, what does the bar graph relate to? And what does the line graph tell you? Okay? And the easiest way I can tell you this, so you don't forget, is this. We have a precipitation. I would write this down. If I know it's up here. I get that. But I'm going to show you a little trick here. Those are the two things on this graph, right? Precipitation and temperature. Okay? So listen. Precipitation comes before temperature, alphabetically, yes? Bar graph comes before line graph, okay? And those always match up like that, okay? So P comes before T, precipitation, temperature, bar graph, line graph, okay? Alphabetically, they match up, yes? Because if you mix those up, you get a very different biome, and perhaps maybe even one that doesn't exist, okay? But chances are, if you mix them up, the questions are so that if you mix them up, you get something totally different, okay? You will find a biome that matches up with that, but it's not going to be the right one, okay? So you have to remember that precipitation is the bar, the line graph is the temperature. Now, this is, you notice this is blue, and this is blue, and this is red, and this is red. It's not going to be like that necessarily, okay? So it might, like for example, on your sheet here, they're both whatever, black or gray or whatever they are, okay? So just keep that in mind. This is Russia here. This would be an example of this. From this, we should probably be able to determine what kind of biome we have here, yes? Okay? Because biomes talk about precipitation and temperature, yeah? So we need to be able to match this up to the biome that best represents this. And I would say, well, we have pretty low precipitation, yes? Pretty low. And the average temperature is going to be what? Well, let's see. I don't think it matters which color it is. Average temperature is going to be around here somewhere. Okay? So I'd say that's what? About minus 10, minus 15, somewhere there-ish. Okay? And the average rainfall here, or precipitation, I should say, I guess, will probably be somewhere in there. It's going to be pretty low, right? Somewhere between 0 and 50. So again, you'd want to match that up with the appropriate biome, which would be the tundra in this case. Okay? All right? Yeah.
When we're doing these questions, are they going to have the convenient title of like where it's from? Like, you guys see this from Russia?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can use the climatographs to understand the following factors. Insolation. By the way, I think there's a spelling mistake on yours. It should say this, insolation. I think it actually auto-corrected to insulation, which is something you find in your house, not. But it should be insolation, which is related to altitude, of course. Or, sorry, latitude. Pattern of global winds, pattern of warm and cold currents in the air, Earth's oceans, and the effect of the differences between specific capacities of water and air. Okay? All right? Now let's take a look at a couple more here. There's also a few other things that you can determine from this. Okay? What can we determine from the climatograph below? What biome does it belong to? And again, I think we already talked about this. This would probably be the tundra, yes. Pretty low precipitations for the most part. Low average temperature. Okay, remember we're talking about average temperatures. Okay. Which hemisphere does this belong to, and how do you know? Yep.
It's in the northern hemisphere because it's summer is in our summer months and it's winter our winter months.
Right.
It was in the southern hemisphere, like December would be warm and yeah, like the middle months would be colder.
Right, exactly. So we can also tell what hemisphere that's in based on, okay, this right here, of course, the temperature, right? So if we're in the northern hemisphere, if we're in our half of the world, right, the upper half, we'd expect June, July to be the hottest, yes? And we expect the winter, January, December to be the coldest, yes? What would you see if it was in the southern hemisphere? Well, obviously this graph would have to be kind of, this might be this might be the same, but this might actually be flipped over. Yes. Okay. So we'd expect to see. I don't know. I think. Do I have an example of that? Well, here's Minnesota, for example. What can we determine from the climatograph below? What biome does the city belong to? Okay. So again, when you're looking at these, we want to talk about averages. Okay. So let's see here. If I was looking at the average temperature, what? It's about, I don't know, 15-ish to about, what? Minus 10, say? So what is that? 15 to minus 10, that's 25 degrees difference. Half 12. Okay, so I'd say it's about, probably about here somewhere, maybe is the average. Okay, so I'd say the average is around 5-ish. Okay, so we're going to look up which one is in the 5 range there, kind of thing. And look at the precipitation. We've got a little bit more here. Probably precipitation should be around what? Somewhere in about here, probably. Okay, roughly. Maybe a little bit higher. And that's around the 50 millimeters or maybe a little bit slightly higher. Okay, but again, this one's going to be a little tricky, probably. But, okay, so most of the ones that we give you like this will be pretty obvious. Okay. But let's take a look here. Do they got an answer for you? Oh, they don't have an answer for you. Okay, so I would say, what is this here? What does that match up to? I would say probably, maybe Deciduous Forest kind of thing? Is that what it matches up with? I think I've been to Duluth, Minnesota. Which one do you think it matches up best with? Yeah. 4 to 14. Okay. What's the average? What's the Deciduous Forest one? Average temperature? 14 to 27. Okay, so yeah, that's probably a little bit. Yeah, it could be grasslands as well. What is that one?
4 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius.
That could be it. Yeah, for sure. What about that? And then you'd have to look at the rain or the precipitation as well, right? So that's another part too. So again, this one's a little tricky for sure. I think I've been to Duluth.
Ooh, actually, Taiga matches up pretty nice.
Who does?
Taiga.
Taiga? Yeah.
That's 100 centimeters yearly of rain, and then there's 4 to 14 degrees Celsius.
Okay, so you're going to see that some of them, they're going to be a little tricky to match up. Some will be pretty easy though, yes? Okay, so probably the easier ones are the ones we want to focus on for sure, and so that we don't have any of that gray area there, okay? Maybe there'll be a picture included, so it kind of helps you with that, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind, okay? Obviously, again, this would be the northern hemisphere, right? Obviously, we know Minnesota is, but, warmest months are in June, July, okay? Last one here. Which hemisphere is this following sitting in? Which one is this hemisphere in? Northern or southern?
Southern.
All right, so here's your line graph here. It's kind of a little bit wonky here, but coldest months are actually what? June, July, yes? And then they warm up for December and January. That's how we know. So you would expect to kind of see this kind of pattern with a southern hemisphere one, okay? And this actually turns out to be, by the way, Sydney, Australia, okay? So quite a bit of rain at times. Also, you have to kind of keep an eye on this graph here, like how much this actually is here as well. But okay, just to kind of give you an idea, though. Okay. What else do we have here? Anything else? Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Good. All right. So I think that takes care of that. Yep. You got some questions there, about 8 questions there, and I'll let you guys work on those for a bit here. And then we'll chat about a few other things here as well. Okay?